we all worry about ourselves so
much.
one of the things that I think this global pandemic has done is it's recentered people into actually collective consciousness. It's like I'm worried about my loved ones, and I'm worried about the country, and I'm worried about Europe, and I'm worried about Asia, and I'm worried about Africa. Like I feel like that's a recentering of like empathy.
Absolutely.
I think most of the time we're like, but is my art the most meaningful?
I know the amount of like journal entries I have in my journal, in my diaries and journals throughout the years of just like, what is going, whatever.
What is my
like,
purpose?
What is my purpose? Exactly.
Yep.
Like,
Totally.
It's
very easy to get like sucked into that, and it's like important
really
to remember
is.
that like health and the health of the people that you love is so important, and also like non-negotiable. Like you're lucky or you're not, and all we can really do
that's the craziest thing about reading and hearing about all these numbers. It's like all of these numbers are lives, and everyone's life is just as complex and special and rare, and
their whole family
and web of friends and loved ones. It's so crazy that those numbers are actual
people.
Humans that have an entire life, and
it's so crazy.
It's really crazy.
I read a piece the other day about, I guess, it's enough people have been sick in New York now that there's quite a few people now who are past it in New York, like a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And they're all hanging out with each other.
Wow.
They're all like, we're past it.
Right.
Like, and we all had it. So
the Survivor
hang.
Club.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the plasma club, the antibody club.
I like this assumption that we have about ourselves where we think that we've already had it, or we're hoping that we've already had it.
I think we've already had it.
You think so?
I do. Here's a little educational period. I read a piece about herd immunity in the state of California.
Yep.
They are now hypothesizing that coronavirus did not start at the end of December. It in fact started in the middle of November, which of course
in Los Angeles or California.
In Wuhan.
Oh, okay.
Now, if it started in mid-November in Wuhan, there were no travel restrictions until fucking March.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there were travel restrictions in and out of Wuhan, but for months prior, there weren't. I forget the number, but I think it is something like 2,000 Chinese nationals a day on average into the state of California.
Wow.
So let's assume that if it actually started back in November in Wuhan, somebody who was asymptomatic, who had no knowledge that they were sick at all, because it was so early and they hadn't even really studied the virus, got it, came over here, gave it to somebody here, whatever. Super easy, obviously like the most innocent of accidents, right? We all got our flu shots here in September. And I guess this past year, November, December, there was a lot of people sick in California with like a quote unquote early flu. Like, flu came early.
Everyone's go-to also was like, the flu's only 30% effective this year.
Yes, exactly. Everybody loves to blame the flu shot on like not working.
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple of months, Claudia goes to New York for a Calvin Klein shoot.
Was this before my birthday?
Yes.
Okay.
You go to New York for a Calvin Klein shoot.
Yeah.
You come back. We have one day together, which is Valentine's Day. Literally only that day.
Right. And then you fly out.
And I left.
And the day you left, I got sick.
Wow.
And
you just come from New York.
How close together it was from my travels to New York.
You got sick and you were like, oh man, every time Finneas goes out of town, I'm sick. And during my absence, you were laid up.
So sick.
Like so sick, like coughing, weak as fuck, fever, achy, just mucus, like just really the sickest I've ever seen you.
Yeah, definitely.
And I come back several days into your illness. And so I don't get sick at least right away.
Yeah.
I don't get anything.
Nope.
And I'm like, well, I must have missed her flu because, the flu, the sort of standard yearly flu is only contagious for the first 48 hours or something.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, I'm fine.
Yeah.
12 days later,
you go back
I
out
start
for
getting sick.
Was this
before I go on tour?
Got it.
I start running nose and coughing, whatever. And it's 12 days later, which is too long to blame you. Except we now know that coronavirus can be asymptomatic for up to 14 days.
Yeah.
And so I get a runny nose, but it's very mild. and I'm congested, my ears are plugged, my eyes are itchy, I'm like, oh, maybe I have allergies, maybe I have a cold, whatever. We go to Florida to start rehearsing for tour. I develop a cough. I develop shortness of breath. We get home as soon as tour is canceled.
You're still sick.
And I'm still sick.
Yeah.
And then I get a fever. And then I get over it. And Billy gets similar symptoms and then gets over it. And my dad is asymptomatic.
But here's my question. Because once you got back from your short tour that had been, canceled.
Yeah, absolutely.
On pause, you're sick once you come back. And then I don't get sick until a week later. I developed a really strong cough for like 3 days. Do you remember that? I didn't feel that sick, but I was coughing like crazy.
I do remember your cough.
That doesn't really help. That doesn't support this,
That doesn't. And I'm not going to try to draw lines I can't see. But it does. The correlation of you being horribly sick, coughing like crazy, me getting sick a couple weeks later with the similar symptoms, my family getting sick, although my dad was asymptomatic, which they now think 1 in 4 cases are asymptomatic.
Right.
Getting back home, feeling wretched for about a week, and then getting better. And also your cough, other than the cough, you were pretty much not.
Yeah, it was fine. It was just
you never got anywhere near what I got.
But how do you even explain that though?
Because if you'd had
earlier, could I have developed a cough after my body had already?
I mean, a cough with no other
itself?
With no other symptoms could be any number of things. It was a changing of seasons or whatever.
It's so hard to pinpoint anything without getting 100%. Tested and having.
Well, and of course, and that's the issue is none of us were ever able to get tested in that process. So none of us know for sure.
Yeah.
And we still haven't done an antibody test. So I'm really excited for those. And my hope, if I'm allowed to hope this, is that we had it and we're over it. That's my hope. Obviously, we could have not had it, but I did have every symptom.
Yeah.
Except for loss of taste.
I guess the only ignorant thing about hoping that we've already had it is that then you have to think back on like
how many people I saw
could have contaminated.
The benefit is that by the time I knew that I had it,
no one in your close circle or on tour tested positive.
No one was able to get a test.
Right.
No one was able to get a test.
And there was someone on your touring.
We right away found out that somebody who had been on tour with
a different
crew. The Jonas Brothers or somebody, one of the Jonas Brothers crew members did test positive, and a couple members of our crew had been with them, and so they started social isolating, and they went to a hotel. And they kind of
warned you guys,
but we'd already fist bumped those people and whatever.
Right.
So even if it didn't come from you. But the fact that other than a cough, you didn't really get sick when I came home all sick, to me is like, well, how would she have not gotten sick? Unless you were asymptomatic.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Fascinating.